So this is Pike in Anchor Point, Alaska. I'm an Orthodox Christian living in my log cabin on the banks of the Anchor River. And tonight I'm going to do some more reading for us, as I usually do. Thanks for joining me. If you want to support my small channel or small farm, it's just www.paypal.me/PikeA. So the first reading that I'm going to do for us tonight is from Pyotr Davidov, and it's entitled, What Am I Supposed to Do? Sleep in the Warmth When Others Are Freezing? From the life of Serbian Patriarch Pavel. Reading or learning from the wars of contemporaries about the life of the Serbian Patriarch Pavel, 1914 to 2009, one comes to a joyful conclusion. It is possible and necessary to live with Christ even in our not very bright times, and it turns out that this not very can be defeated, to bring the gospel light into life. The same light that shone in Bethlehem, on Tabor, Golgotha, and over the sepulchre of the risen Christ. It turns out to be eternal. You just need to let it shine into your heart. There you see, and life will become clearer. Patriarch Pavel constantly proved this. Here are a few memories of it, bringing warmth to our winter cold. Shoemaker Bishop. Contemporaries and friends of Patriarch Pavel recall that while still a teacher at the Prizren Theological Seminary, and later when he had already become a bishop in Kosovo and at Metohija, Pavel selflessly helped poor students, gave them his salary and firewood for heating, repaired their shoes, and bound textbooks. And then he set aside several rooms in his bishop's house where poor students could live and eat for free, together with the monks who also attended the theological seminary. Vladika demanded only one thing in return, the observance of order and discipline, writes Archimandrite Jovan. There are many other testimonies about the mercy of the late patriarch. For example, one journalist recalls, they said about Pavel that he was very thrifty, almost stingy. He always turned off the lights, saved on everything, collected crumbs, did not like new clothes. In my work, I often had to visit the Patriarchate, and once in the reception room, I saw a very poorly dressed old man there. I had to make material about the life of the Serbian Orthodox Church. The meeting with the Patriarch was long. We had to wait in the reception room. I sat down next to the old man and asked just like that, and who are you waiting for? So the Patriarch, he answered, he will help me. We have been friends since childhood. I myself am from Bosnia. All my people fled to Germany during the war and I was alone. Now I'm going to visit them there. But I have no money for the trip. I must admit with shame that at first I thought, oh, here is another beggar. The fact is in that those years there were so many of them. Good people, help as much as you can. There is no money for the road, a familiar story. But I was surprised by the humility of the old man and his kind of bright, childlike confidence that the Patriarch would not leave him. And so it happened. When, after the meeting, the Patriarch was informed that a man was waiting for him in the reception room who claimed to know each other, Pavel came out of the office, peered at the old man, recognized him, hugged him, and called him by name. I don't remember how, but I understood that the poor old man was from a Muslim family. The Patriarch asked how he could help. Then he almost ran to the office, took out an envelope with money, and ordered the secretary to buy a train ticket to Germany. Then, for some time, his friend about life, about family, about children. I accompanied him to the exit and told him to be sure to contact him if he needed anything. This is how I learned a little about the life of the Serbian Orthodox Church. Patriarch Realtor. Patriarch Pavel's deacon, Father Momir Lesits, relates, he helped orphans a lot and could not stand to be told about it. A simple example, the Patriarch saved money and in the village of Mrchajevci near Kachek, bought 2 houses with a plot of land for 2 large families of refugees from Kosovo and Metohija from the city of Pets. In the same village, I bought another house for a large family. There were 9 children from Kalyevo, and then at that time, the family lived in a metal container of 14 squares. I know many other similar cases. For example, one woman, a refugee from Prizren, came to the patriarch and told him with tears that her daughter had stopped growing. She had some serious illness. But she says she heard that there is some good medicine in Switzerland, but the price for them is unaffordable. The patriarch does this. He calls a Serbian priest in Zurich, describes the situation of a family in need, and the next day, together with a pilot, sends expensive medicines that really help the girl defeat the disease. Later, the same priest helped raise 3.5 million in Switzerland for the poor in Belgrade. And what should I do? The same deacon says, "Howdy, everybody. God bless you. Thanks for joining me." Paul never took the salary that was due to him as a patriarch. He paid for his basic needs from his meager pension, and he often paid scholarships to poor students. For example, when African, he studied at the medical faculty in Belgrade, or he supported one of our famous academians with money. There were many such cases in the life of the patriarch, and I think a whole book could be compiled listing them. Radmila Radic cites the following incident in her biography of Patriarch Pavel. Once during the war, he looked out of the window and saw a group of refugees standing in the rain out in the courtyard of the Patriarchate. Pavel went out, opened the massive wooden gate, and invited them to come into the house to rest and to dry. To the objections of some employees that they say ill wishers can come along with the group, he replied, "And what do you think I should do? Sleeping in the warmth and watching the children get wet in the rain and shiver from the cold?" Judicious severity. Patriarch Pavel said, "The resurrected God is a witness. I can come and pray for our sufferers, brothers, sisters, and children in churches and in hospitals and in rich restaurants and in luxurious mansions. I would stand and ask for help." Paul taught the Serbian people that without mercy for one's neighbor, there is no salvation. That all our possessions, spiritual and material, are talents, credit given for a time, for which we will one day have to give an account to the lender, the Creator, and the Lord. Have we used this credit wisely, conscientiously, mercifully, without vanity? Did you follow the example of the saints who not only gave their property and comfort, but their lives for their neighbor, following the example of Christ? Such a judicious use of God's credits implies both the utmost caution and the categorical rejection of dishonesty, laziness, and drunkenness, all of which the world calls the enjoyment of life. Such pleasure leads to vice to which there can be no condescension, according to the apostles' commandment. He who will not work, neither shall he eat. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. Paul once showed this patristic caution and severity in practice. One beggar always asked him for money for bread, but spent it on drink. When the patriarch learned that money was harmful, he began to buy him bread himself, but the shameless beggar exchanged it for alcohol. Paul then began to break bread so that it would be impossible to sell. After that, the beggar never again appeared at the patriarchs. Mercy does not mean indulgence in vice. Christian rigor and reasoning are also very important. And Patriarch Pavel was not stingy, he was reasonable. In a Christian, sensible way, such a quality would not hurt us. Pyotr Davidov, December 29th, 2025. I'm going to do some more readings for us. So I'm an old right Christian living in Anchor Point, Alaska on my small farm. And I do Orthodox readings for us. Plus, I do all the other stuff that I do: fish, hunt, look for mushrooms, forage in the forest, prospect. I have a small farm here in Alaska. I do as much as I can. I don't like sports. I just feel like to me, it's bread and circus. It just seems like the Roman Empire still, and I just don't do it. I'm trying to find the next article that I was going to read for us. Hopefully it pops up this time. Oh, Oh, sometimes the articles disappear that I want to read. Probably should have opened that first. Give me just a minute. Where's everybody from? Hit and translate because I do some readings that are written in English, but a lot of the readings that I do for us are either in Russian, Romanian. Well, it looks like one of the other ones that I was going to read for us kind of disappeared, so I'll do a different reading. Read about the Holy Great Martyrs Barbara by Maria Tobolova. The Holy Great Martyr Barbara is one of the most famous and revered saints in the Orthodox Church. She was born in the city of Heliopolis of Phoenicia, modern-day Lebanon. Her father, the pagan Dioscorus, belonged to the Phoenician aristocracy. During the reign of the Roman Emperor Maximian, reigned 306 through 311. Having lost his wife early, Dioscorus focused all his attention on his daughter, whom he was very proud of. Seeing her extraordinary beauty, he dreamed that Barbara would make a profitable match by marrying a nobleman, and perhaps even the nephew of the Emperor Maximian himself. In the meantime, Dioscorus decided to isolate his daughter from temptations and settled her in a high tower along with teachers and servants. The life of the saint tells that a maiden admiring the beauty of the nature from the window asked herself the question, who created such beauty? Who was able to arrange everything in this world so beautifully and intelligently? She asked her tutors about this, and they replied that it was created by the gods whom her father worships. To this, Barbara answered, the gods whom my father worships are made by human hands. How could these soulless idols create such a bright sky and such an earthly beauty? There must be only one God, whom was not created by human hand, but by him himself, who was his own being. Thus, the future martyress, contemplating this world, gradually came to the thought of the one true creator of all earthly things. The idols which her father's house was full of brought her bewilderment and confusion. When the time came for Barbara to think about marriage, many noble suitors came to Dioscorus to ask for her hand. But the chaste maiden refused to marry her father's proposals, saying that she wanted to remain a virgin all her life. After long and useless conversations, she began to threaten her father with suicide if forced to marry. Frightened by such an outcome, her father allowed Varvara to go out of the tower into the city for walks. He hoped that by communicating with her friends, who would boast of suitors, his daughter would change her mind. But the saint, having received her freedom, became acquainted with local Christians who secretly gathered in caves located in the vicinity of the city. From her new Christian friends, she learned about the one God, the creator of heaven and earth, God the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. After a while, she was baptized by a presbyter who was passing through Heliopolis under the guise of a merchant. One day, Dioscorus left on urgent business. Before leaving, he began the construction of a luxurious bathhouse. During Dioscorus's long absence, Barbara ordered the slaves to build a third window in the new annex on the south side and honor the Most Holy Trinity. In the bathhouse, She drew a cross on marble slabs with her hand, thus drawing together with the footprint of Varvara was clearly visible and remained on the floor of the bathhouse for a long time after Varvara's death. Healing water flowed from that footprint from her foot. When Dioscorus returned and began to inquire of the builders why the building was not built as he planned, they referred to the order of his daughter. 3 windows are better than 2, Varvara answered her father, for the unapproachable, ineffable light of the Trinitarian has 3 windows, hypostases or persons. The father was furious when he learned that his daughter had become a Christian. A zealous pagan, he hated Christians, considering them enemies of the Roman Empire, and this hatred was stronger in him than the love for his own daughter. He rushed to Barbara with a sword in his hands with the intention of killing her. The girl ran away, but an impregnable rock appeared in her way. Barbara called on God for help, and the mountain parted, opening the way for her to the top, and closed in front of her father. The place where Barbara took refuge was pointed out to Dioscorus by one of the shepherds. Her father severely beat Barbara in the morning of the next day. He took her to the governor of the city, Marcian, before whom he renounced his daughter and asked her to be judged for the neglecting pagan traditions. Marcian, seeing a girl of extraordinary beauty, began to persuade her to be obedient to her father's will and to offer sacrifice to idols. But Barbara was not affected by Marcian's long persuasion. She remained adamant in her decision to devote her life to the service of the true God, and not to soulless idols. Then sophisticated torture began. The enraged governor ordered her to be exposed naked in front of the crowd. Then the saint was beaten with raw ox sinews, and deep wounds were rubbed with sackcloth, a coarse cloth made of goat's hair, until they began to bleed. However, the martyrs Barbara endured the first torture, and Marcian gave orders to throw her into prison. All night long, Barbara prayed to God that he would strengthen her before new sufferings. In the morning, the governor ordered her to be brought to trial. Seeing that the wounds on the body of the martyrs had disappeared, he tried to convince her that she had been healed by the pagan gods, to which Barbara replied that the Lord had healed her. A certain Christian woman, Juliana, seeing this miracle, began to openly confess her faith and wished to suffer for Christ in the same way. Both martyrs were subjected to the most cruel tortures. The governor gave orders to hang the martyress Barbara and to shave her sides with iron claws, to burn her body with burning candles, and to beat the saint on her head with a hammer. He ordered Barbara and Juliana's breasts to be cut off. Then he ordered Juliana to be imprisoned and Barbara to be led naked through the city. But the Lord sent an angel, and God's messenger covered her nakedness. Seeing the futility of persuasion and torture, the tyrant sentenced both women to beheading with a sword. Varvara volunteered to be executed by her own father. In impotent anger, Dioscorus raised his sword over his daughter. Before falling dead at the feet of the executioner, Barbara managed to say, "The will of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit be done." Together with St. Barbara was executed St. Juliana. The blessed death of the holy martyresses followed in the year 306. Later, Dioscorus and the governor Marcian suffered retribution. Both of them were burned by lightning. A certain pious man, Valentinian, took the remains of Barbara and Juliana and buried them in the village of Galasius, Asia Minor. A church was erected on this place, and the relics of the saints healed the sick with leprosy. According to tradition, in the 6th century, during the reign of Emperor Augustine, the relics of St. Barbara were transferred to Constantinople. In 1108, Princess Barbara Comnena, daughter of the Byzantine Emperor Alexios Komnenos, before leaving for Russia, asked her father for a gift of healing relics. Her husband, Grand Duke Sviatopolk Izoslavich, baptized Michael, who had built a stone church in Kiev a year earlier, reverently placed the healing relics of the great martyr there and founded the St. Michael's Golden Dome Monastery. In Russia, the life of Barbara was widespread in copies of the 14th century, but it was already known in the 11th century. The author of the Legend of Saints Boris and Gleb compares the death of Boris on the orders of his brother with the death of Barbara at the hands of her father. In St. Michael's Monastery in 1847, the relics of St. Barbara were placed in a precious reliquary built on the donation of the Countess Anna Orlova Chesmenskaya. During the destruction of this monastery in the 1930s, the relics of St. Barbara were removed and transferred to the Kiev-Pechursk Museum Reserve. At present, they are kept in St. Volodymyr's Cathedral in Kiev. The left foot of the saint is located in St. Barbara's Cathedral in Edmonton, Canada. It was taken out of Kiev in 1943 by Bishop Pantaleimon, who began to serve in Canada in 1952. In Moscow, the Church of St. John the Warrior on Yakimanka, a part of Barbara's finger with a ring, is kept, transferred from the Church of the Great Martyr Barbara on Varvarka. In the Orthodox Church, the memory of the Holy Great Martyr Barbara is celebrated on December 4th, and also 17th, Old Calendar. She is revered by believers as a protector against sudden and violent death without repentance. In 1995, St. Barbara was declared the heavenly patroness of the strategic missile forces of Russia. This is explained by the fact that the strategic missile forces were formed on December 17th, on the day when the Holy Orthodox Church celebrates the memory of Martyr Barbara. So it was decided to consider St. Barbara the heavenly patroness of rocket soldiers, artillerymen, mortarmen, and other branches of the armed forces and branches of the Russian armed forces. In 1999, her icon, which is now in the Samara Diocesan Museum, with the blessing of His Holiness Patriarch and of all Russia, Alexei II, was on board the Mir orbital station. Holy Great Martyr Barbara, pray to God for Russia and for us sinners. By Maria Tobolova. See, the next article that I want to read for us. A mysterious force that rocks the constellations. Howdy, good to see you, Paul E-Dog. Actually, I think I've read this one before. I might do a different reading than this one. Immersion in Mystery, Divers Notes on the Depths of God's Wisdom by Elena Naselyadcheva. Through the contemplation of creations. To say surprise is not enough, impressive. Are they striking, inspiring, again not the same? It is hardly possible to find suitable words to express how much the divine hymns of St. Simeon, the new theologian, amaze and nourish the soul with the unearthly, heavenly grace-filled. And the main thing is that the saint theologizes about incomprehensible mysteries proceeding from the contemplation of simple things and phenomena familiar to everyone. He just looks and sees what is invisible to us. How shall I explain to you the inexplicable? How shall I utter the ineffable? However, listen and I will speak. He sees a ray of sunlight touching the palm of his hand and utters the words about the uncreated light of the Holy Trinity. He depicts the ability of the human eye to perceive the radiance of the sun, and again manages to explain the inexplicable, the nature of God himself. He examines the skillfully woven web and sees the omnipresence of the Creator, his providence for every living creature, even the smallest one. He plunges his hand into the waves of the sea, and in one drop of water contemplates the sea in a drop, and in it the abysses of abysses and the aggregate, the closeness of God to man, and at the same time the abyss of God's immensity and unattainability. I am not an I cannot reach the spiritual heights of Saint Simeon. However, why not try to draw closer to God by contemplating the beauty of the world he created? For his invisible things, his eternal power and Godhead, are visible from the foundation of the world through the contemplation of the creatures. And it is quite realistic, like a great poem and theologian of antiquity, to learn and to find in purely material phenomena and elements, for example, in the depths of the sea, edification for the soul, a reason for prayer, and reflection on something completely immaterial and therefore much more valuable. Parallel world. If you think about it, the land on planet Earth is just an island in the world's oceans, an island in a parallel different world, not ours, not human, where you can't breathe, talk, or sing, but you can float endlessly in space without needing a landing point, a world where all the laws of existence and life of the living flesh are different. We can recall the anomalies of gravity, optics, pressure, thermal conductivity. Yes, it's not like that in the water. In general, I love water very much, swimming and diving, taking a deep breath. The water is so gentle and elastic, especially salty, but looking at the TV screen and watching people with scuba gear, the famous Cousteau team, those who touch the sunken objects, sharks, and other outlandish inhabitants of the depths. I never imagined myself in the place of divers, never, not once, not one iota. I've always liked these programs, but for some reason, I have never tried on scuba gear for myself, maybe because diving seemed to be a terribly difficult and unattainable occupation, the business of chosen, physically trained people. Life is a strange thing, and sometimes things happen to you that you don't expect at all, and what you really want for some reason remains unattainable. And I've seen there, deep underwater, and not once, but already 50 times. She swam side by side with fish, mollusks, corals, wandered through underwater tunnels and caves. I had a chance to immerse myself in another reality and look deeper into the world that the Creator has given us. Getting to know fans and diving professionals better, I met something strange for me. What attracts them to the depths, to dangerous, difficult places? Who makes them dive in any weather, in any water, cold, muddy, foamed by sharks, or God knows what? God knows what dangerous creatures. And they swim and crawl into cracks and caves, holes, for example, into the blue sea on the Red Sea. They go to places where the probability of nitrogen and who knows what kind of anesthesia, poisoning, or that the blood will literally boil is 1000%. And for what? Adrenaline, buzz, another tick in the scale of master depths. Isn't life a precious gift, fragile and unique? It would be better to take care of him, however. Obviously, the Creator knew that man would climb Mount Everest and dive into the Mariana Trench, that he would be curious, searching, and exploiting, that for his purpose it will adapt to diving, flying, and crawling, inventing all sorts of technical delights. And therefore, O Lord, thou hast created beauty everywhere, and in the immeasurable hidden depths of the ocean, too. What a variegated, unimaginably bright palette of colors was in thy hand when thou didst bestow upon the underwater inhabitants. What fantastic, unimaginable shapes and colors. And who is this luxurious carnival for? Is it really only for humans? But who among dumb creatures is able to appreciate and understand this? It seems that only he is a person and appreciates and is ready to risk his life just to see, to know something even more amazing, fascinating, and delightful. A person who wants to learn. This thirst, this temptation is irre- ineradicable in him, and apparently the tree of knowledge grows not only in Eden, but also underwater in a coral paradise. Mobiles and Mobile. There, under the water, you hang with scuba gear for the first time in this empty and at the same time elastic space. You do not see the bottom below you. There's an acute feeling of the lack of fulcrum. There's nothing to rely on. Everything is shaky and unreliable. You can rotate around your little finger with so many degrees of freedom that it is impossible to determine where is up, down, left, or right. There's no coordinate system. A feeling of anxiety rolls in. It's like a vice, tighter and tighter, and the heart squeezed in them now stops, then beats in a frantic rhythm. This is how sometimes the soul suffers, having all reference points in the thickness of existence. There are no former ones, and you haven't seen any new ones yet, and you soar in this boundless space without the support. Panic attacks force you to make ridiculous, senseless movements. After all, it's so scary to fall somewhere into the abyss. But so much depends on you. If you freeze, calm down, and do not twitch nervously, grabbing what cannot be grabbed and held, there are more chances not to sink and eventually swim out and find landmarks and find a point of support in this very elastic environment of existence. After all, it is able to hold and carry you on its own. A night underwater with scuba gear is a continuous space only without stars, and therefore absolutely black, absolutely mysterious. People plunge into the very core of bottomless blackness, and it envelopes them. Only rays of artificial light cut through the vicious black flesh of darkness, but behind the backs of the swimmers it grows together again, as if it had never been disturbed by man. The light of the lanterns beats bright pillars from the hands of the swimmers and illuminates the round fragments of the reefs that rise around like trunks of giant trees with powerful spreading crowns. Here and there, strange creatures and fish appear. I don't stand, sit, or lie in this underwater forest. I hang in the middle of it and can reach any branch with my hand. I feel dizzy. The brain is confused by the unknown. Instincts are torn off the rails and devoid of guidelines. Where am I? What is wrong with me? This is night diving, and it is somewhat reminiscent of diving into the depths of the subconscious, into the darkness of one's own eye. Diving into the night sea is akin to knowing yourself. Light at the end of the tunnel. Go to the cave, there is a deep hole in the ground. In the middle, there is a serpentine of metal steps of a spiral staircase. We descend to a miniature lake, looking at the calm surface of which you would never think that there, behind the boulders, vaguely visible at the bottom, there are underground tunnels and caves. It's like this with people at first. There's nothing special. A person is like a person, but his heart is deep and unknown. We are divided into two groups. We will dive in turns. There below, the passages are too narrow. The smaller the group, the more convenient it is to stick together so that not a single living soul gets lost in the labyrinths of the underwater minotaur. No, let's call them Neptune's labyrinths. The local instructor has the Adrian's thread, and in the dry language of professionals, it is the guiding cable of the leading dive guide. He will unwind it from the reel in full view of all the boys and maidens who follow, or rather male and female divers swimming along the dark passages. Any change of route, if you get lost or fall into a cloud of silt raised from the bottom, is fraught with unchildish problems. The air in the cylinders is not endless. You will begin to wander. Finita la comedy, and the time of your mortal existence is running out. And only this thread, end, or cable, whatever you like, will help you keep the right direction and swim out of the underwater labyrinth alive and unharmed. Well, there's my turn to bleed the air out of the compensator and start descending. The flashlight is turned on with a blinding blade of light rips open the blackness around. We're going down steeply. As long as my soul is calm and I repeat the prayer in my mind, I don't remember which one. The main thing is that I knock on the door of the Creator who created me. The water and these voids in the earth, I ask for my blessing, for my daring desire to see this innermost depth, where no living creature hides, breathes, or screams. Nothing lives or nests except microbes. The dead kingdom, but not the kingdom of the dead. The descent is somewhat reminiscent of sliding down a pipe in a water park. It is also dark and narrow, and you don't know where the end is and when you will slip out of this tight, like a bottle's neck. Along the way, hello, Klein, there's a layer of oil in the water which envelopes and deprives the vision of sharpness. I push the fat, swirling haze with my head, and it is off as I am penetrating into a space-time continuum, beyond which there is an unknown or parallel world. I was warned about the presence of this special natural phenomenon at the junction of the salt and fresh water, and still I felt uncomfortable. For a couple of seconds, my breath was choked in my goiter. Only in the mouth there is not cheese but a mouthpiece, and it is impossible to drop it. Unlike cheese. Another reason for panic, there is nowhere to float, to drown to. There are stones all around here, bare, beautiful, and indifferent to your problems. In this underwater space, only space brothers in hydro spacesuits are a source of bright hope and life giving air, if anything. Halo Klein is something fantastic, however, something that still extremely sharpens the desire for clarity and clarity of being. We had two dives into this underground formation, saturated with stalactites, stalagmites, and giant boulders, ascents into compact caves with an airspace, also called a pocket above the surface of the water. About La Serena, the impression of crampedness and oppressive vaults of narrow stone passages remained. Following the dive guide and his Adrian's thread, we made our way and seeped into the thickness of the earth and water. What a what a good image, as if you passed through the narrow canal of the Mother Earth and saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Consider yourself born again. At the bottom of the cave there is silt. We were strictly warned with fins that is flippers, not to wave much, not to muddy the water. Otherwise it won't settle until morning. You need to soar, rising your fins as high as possible, and work them delicately. One might even say gently. I immediately remembered hummingbirds drinking the nectar of flowers on the fly. Okay, vaping is soaring. Moreover, such stone flowers grow in the cave that neither Bazov nor his master Danila dreamed of. Strange, why was the cave called Padre Nuestro? Translated from the Spanish, it is our Father. Who knows what was on the mind of the first divers who learned the secrets of these underground voids? Personally, I gave this cave the name Delicate, keeping close to the ceiling and maneuvering among the thinnest stalagmites. We made our way delicately, because one awkward movement, and you hedgehog in the fog, and its finely dispersed mixture is stirred up from the bottom, and it will not seem enough, and Adrian's thread will not help. You cannot see the flippers in front of the swimmer. You cannot see the tip of your own nose. I thought this is like that dirty, muddy sediment that lies in the soul of a person. It's easy to stir up and is so difficult to wait for clarity and transparency again. And how deceptive this transparency is. It seems that a crystal clear kind soul's in front of you, but as soon as you make an awkward accidental movement, and you will, find so much dirt, garbage, and who knows what else. Then farewell to all unearthly beauty and hidden depths of the soul, the elegance of their constrictions, and the sparkle of their virtues from which they are woven. But in everything there is unity and struggle of opposites. One should not think that there is no beauty at all in a sinful, vicious person. And at the same time, it is foolish to be deceived that there is not a drop of muddy sediment in anyone good and positive. Mystery, the most magnificent, stunning cave of the three that I had the chance to visit even before the dive. She met us with her ceremonial grotto. A string of massive stone steps led down to a cozy and at the same time solemn hall with a high vault and shimmering stalagmites, between which here and there, like black lightning, the silhouettes of bats flashed. This absolutely fantastic picture was complemented by a powerful web of plant roots that sprouted here from above, from where the sun jungle air are putting on from where the sun and the jungle air are. Putting on a compensator, fins, and gloves, I wait for the signal to start and admire the glare of the light on the clear water, on the arches of the grotto, sparkling bright sparks of crystals interspersed within the gray, discreet rock. Excitement still hauntingly tingles somewhere inside with small, annoying needles, but they're no longer so sharp. After all, this is not the first time I have gone to the bottom of the underground labyrinth. We go underwater, and this immersion gives a true feast for the eyes, a quiet delight from several truly grandiose halls. A couple of days later, I had the chance to visit a dry cave and enjoy the unique surround sound of a small concert grotto, where I ventured to sing the Belarusian folk Kapelinka, but I could not help but be much more surprised that just a couple of years ago I could fly into the middle of the cave hall with a slight wave of my arm or legs and hover in the very center of it to get a better look at its unique shape. In a cave filled with water, this is not difficult. You float in the clear column of water like air, and without much effort, you can approach any part of the hall that interests you. You're soaring and you can see everything from such angles that are simply unimaginable on land. You soar and contemplate the sparkling columns and pilasters, graceful arches, apses and capitals, labyrinths and festoons, endless enfilades and corridors of underwater palaces, and their masterpiece halls. This is how I remember a cave with some absolutely unrespectable name, and that does not correspond to the content. But a cave is the same as a mystery, an image of the hidden, either from the eyes or from the mind. Why, what is incomprehensible, not clear, not obvious? In the cave, Christ was born, and in the cave, he was resurrected, and he himself is a continuous and incomprehensible mystery. We people cannot do without secrets, and it is not worth it if everything were obvious. Then existence would be a boring plain, a desert without a single oasis or dune hiding in the horizon. You need a mystery, secrecy, a tedious inadequacy, like a corridor, a tunnel, a secret passage that goes into the unknown, sometimes frightening and sometimes irresistibly attracting. With the secret, you need to be reverently careful, careful and reasonable, and then it can give you more than comprehending it, being involved in it, immersing yourself in it, and feeling how amazing and magnificent it is, and how magnificent it is. The experience gained through diving and divers allowed me to take another step in knowing myself. But when she was still a teenager, she once wrote, "Sometimes I feel terror when I glance into myself. The depths of the ocean are a puddle compared to the abyss inside me." And at the same time, diving gives us a chance to learn another world, the world that is next to us on such a familiar and so unknown planet Earth. All the splendor of this strange, mysterious, but amazingly beautiful water element made us wonder once again how great and skillful the artist created everything around us. By Elena Nelestysheva, May 24th, 2021. I'm a diver as well. It's always amazing to me the things that I see. Every time I dive, I see so many things beyond counting that I have no idea what they are. Even up here in Alaska, I wear a 7 millimeter wetsuit, and a lot of times I can't find anybody to dive with me. So I started free diving, where I didn't have to carry heavy tanks or any heavy gear, and started diving in some of the lakes out in the forests and tundra, diving in different parts of the ocean. The jellyfish, everything is amazing. Then I started spearfishing and gathering food. So I spearfish salmon and flounder and pollock, gather sea urchins. If it was legal, I could pick up Dungeness crabs off the bottom. You always find strange treasures and stuff, debris, really cool and interesting rocks. But you look at the jellyfish, and it just came to my mind as I'm watching a clear jellyfish, and inside of it, there's pink organs that I don't even know what the organs are inside of it, pulsating and sparkling in the sunlight. And I just look and I was thinking, this has to be something like the seraphim and the cherubim. If I'm ever graced to see that while alive through my fleshly eyes, I could just imagine that it must be like the jellyfish. And all these things are conscious of themselves. They're living their own life. They know what they're doing in their little world, or not little world, but in their own world. And it's so mind-boggling how much creation And even if you look closely at a little bit of that water, you see so many millions of things moving around, different shapes. Some are square, some are star shaped, some are tubular, some have different colors. And you see things that are like a grain of sand, but they're moving faster than you could swim, left and right and up and down. It really is amazing. And it made me think, how could anyone be an atheist if they were to jump in this water with a pair of goggles on and see how much life is in this little bit of water? How could anyone be an atheist? How could anyone create? How could anyone think that all this creation just started on its own? So many times that I'm down in the harbor, the seals and the otters come up to me and look at me, and they're eating different things, different crabs and shellfish. And when I dive under the floats to repair them, I see all these sponges. And one time I was working on a water pipe and had my hand there, and this little orange octopus came out and went and wiggled his little tentacles on my hand and then saw me and took off. Little shrimp. It is really amazing. And I think maybe some people that are feeling depressed in the world, maybe they should put on some dive gear and dive into the ocean, and that might help reaffirm their faith that this just didn't happen by accident. We weren't just created in some big bang theory, but God created us with a purpose. And He's created so much beauty in this world. And it helps us to forget the ugliness, or maybe it helps us remember the ugliness that humanity's created. To remember all the ugliness in the world was created by man. It didn't exist here with us, and it's because of the fall, because of the evil one, evil intent. But when we separate ourselves from that, we can again see beauty. I love you all, brothers and sisters, so much, and God loves you all so much more than I'll ever be able to express. Thanks for joining me and listening to this reading. I'll probably be back on in a little bit here and do some more reading. We'll see. So God bless. God willing, I'll be back on in a little bit. Paka paka.